Well, welcome back. It's been a few more than a few minutes, but that's okay. We're going to get everything taken care of and watch your Canvas site for some explanatory announcements, please. You should be checking that about once a week anyway, but check it today for sure. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to run up through a couple PowerPoints, and we will then um, actually, let's do it before. I want to run through Earthan View again. You remember where to find it. It is on my list of links. If you don't want to use Earthan View, or you don't want to download it, or there's not a variation for your particular operating system, that's fine. You know, you can go out and buy a cheap little photo editor for, you know, compared to what it used to be, pennies. If you have Adobe Photoshop, that's way overpowered for what we need. Um, I have used Earthan View since I found it about 20 years ago. It's become my default go-to. I have GIMP, which is Photoshop Lite. You can get it for free off the web. And I have access to Photoshop via the university here, but I still by default go right back to Earthan View because it's quick and easy and it doesn't take 5 minutes to load the way GIMP and Photoshop seem to do. What I want to show you guys is a wonderful, wonderful image here of a puppy. Now, I was told at the very beginning of a class that a man was, I don't remember what his job was. He had some kind of a security clearance or something, and he didn't want to let people know where he was. I don't care. But this was his puppy. And this puppy dog, well, that's a queen size bed, if that gives you some idea of how big the dog is. I've got Earthan View up, and that's what comes up, or what he comes up in, or at least his image does. So I want to go to images and information, and I can't really make this bigger, but let's see, where the heck is it here? Ah, 9 MB in size. Its original size, because we're zoomed it down to make it fit in its window. Its original size is 2048 by 1536 pixels. That's pretty big. And let's see, what did it take us here? It loaded in 31 milliseconds, but I loaded this off my desktop, not from over a website. So it's going to be slow to load. Plus, it is going to be just expensive as hell to send out over the web. So we really don't want to do that. Instead, a good compromise I found is about 300 by 300 pixels. So we can go to image, uh, resize, where's, there it is. I was in the wrong part of the column. Resize, resample, or hit Control R, and that will bring up this menu. It says current size 2048 by 1536, new size 2048 by 1356 or 1536, excuse me, in pixels. We saw that already on the information part. There are a couple things we can do. We can actually type in a new value for the larger number up here, or this one allows us to set the new width in this case, because I've just clicked on width, as a percentage of the original size. Now, there's a little thing down here that says preserve aspect ratio proportional. What that means is that if we click on that and we take, well, let's take this one and we turn it to 300 pixels wide, my height automatically shrinks in proportion to the original image. So my height is automatically recalculated to 225 pixels in height. And of course, you can use other value or units if you want to, but frankly, it's just as easy to keep it at pixels. I would just consistently tell you to avoid using anything other than pixels for images at this point in your career. If I uncheck this, um, well, let's look at what it looks like. Okay, there's what it looks like right now. But let's go back in here. Remember, we go into image, second set on the column, resize, resample. Maybe I think that's too small, so this time though, I'm gonna uncheck preserve aspect ratio, and I'm gonna pop this puppy up to double its size there. See what happens? You can literally warp or twist or whatever you want to call it, this image until it looks really, really strange. You could find the correct proportionality to make it into, you know, the dog being basically a little ball-shaped thing, perhaps, or a very, very stretched out and weird looking one like we've got here. You do much more than this. You can turn the dog into a straight line by basically stretching him out as far as he goes. But that's not what we want. So while we're out here, we've got the reverse button or the reverse arrow, whatever you want to call it, and I want to reverse it. So I'm going to do File, whoops, and we want to do Save As, and I don't want it in my documents. I'm going to go back up to the desktop, and since we've already got a bed dog on the desktop, I'm going to do bed-dog-sm for small .jpg. Now, you don't have to type the JPG, it'll come in automatically. If you want to play around with the quality and so forth over here, go right ahead. It's kind of fun to see what happens. And I'm just going to go ahead then and save it. So now, let me share my whole screen with you. And let's go back to do that. I think we're good to go here. You might be able to see that I have bed dog and bed dog small. So if I click bed dog and slide him over here a little bit and then bed dog small. If you had to pick one of these up and carry it, I'd rather carry the small one. I can protect it better. I can don't have to worry about lifting it. Even just the picture being that big makes it look like the dog's heavier than half. The point really though is not whether I can lift it or you can lift it, because that's kind of a silly argument. The real point is that you're paying for a smaller amount of bandwidth with the smaller image. And you can always link to the bigger image if that's really what you need to do. That way, people that are just buzzing through with curiosity and idle hands can look at him that way. They can try to scroll up or scroll down with the mouse wheel on the HTML page and see a slightly fuzzed out, maybe large version of it. But this size at about 300 by 300, I think is a pretty good compromise for any website. We can talk about, or we will talk about using background images once we get into CSS. But for now, we're just going to worry about making sure that the image that we put on Odin for your websites is small enough that it doesn't overcrowd everything. Remember, this was like 9 megabytes. It's a huge image. You only have at UNO 1 gigabyte of space for all of your programming classes. So we want to keep our files that we're going to link to pretty small. It makes sense that way. So again, I'm going to stop sharing that And let's get logged in to Loki and to WinSkip. So I assume you've paused the video and you're logged into Loki and WinSkip right now. So we need to change directory into public, whoops, underscore HTML. Oh, for crying out loud. I forgot and capitalized it. What the heck is going on here? Oh, let's see, CD. Caps lock is an evil key. CD public underscore HTML. Nothing hurts worse than making the same typo over and over and over again. Now remember, I'm going to be doing this in Summer 20 inside of public HTML and not in Sumeria. There we go. It has been a long, long week, folks. So there's my CD Summer 20. Oh, maybe I want to. No, because I was showing you the whole directory, wasn't it? I was not. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Let's get that screen share thing together. All right. Sorry. I'm assuming that you're logged in here on Loki. Remember, if you want to go down one level in the tree from the branch to the place where the tree splits into bigger branches, you can do CD space dot dot. It goes down one level. If you just do CD and hit the enter key, it goes all the way down to your home directory. In my case, the J. Blackmore Odin. In your case, your net ID at Odin. In order to get into public underscore HTML, we CD and type the name. And you heard me having all kinds of trouble there a minute ago trying to get the bloody thing typed right. HTML, and I had accidentally hit the caps lock key. That was a pain in the butt. Now remember, I have a Summer 20 directory because I keep all of the lectures separately. That way, if I need to go back and find out what I talked about in the summer of 20 in a certain week or a certain lecture, I can go back and do that. You guys will treat my public underscore HTML summer 20 to just be your public underscore HTML. Now, I got a lot of stuff in here already because I moved in some information that we're going to use in a couple weeks. But for right now, all you guys would have would be your index.html, this one right here, for your public underscore HTML directory. So when you would come into odin.unomaha.edu/tilde your net ID, you would come in with that first little web page that we talked about. Or if you made a mistake on assignment 1, the punch and run, and left it in this directory, that's okay, but it really needs to be in an A1 directory. So what I want to do real quick before we do anything else is I want to go through how you're going to do that. So you make directory A1, and there's nothing there to tell us we made a mistake, but ls-l takes you 3 seconds to type, and you can go and scroll backwards, and there's our A1 directory. We formed it right now. Now I have a template.txt in this file, just like you guys have in public underscore HTML. If you don't, hit the link on my website, the one with the HTML5 template in red. There you go. Right click and save link as or save file as, and it'll tell you it's template.txt. Drop it on your desktop, and here in a few minutes we're going to use WinSkip a little bit. So we'll do both of those at the same time. That's only if you don't already have it in public underscore HTML. All right, so I want to set template.txt into the A1 directory and rename it index.html at the same time. Remember George Foreman, the boxer? I think he had a famous fight with Muhammad Ali, actually. I didn't watch the fight itself, but the two of them making snarky jokes at each other was hilarious. I always would watch the pre-fight banter. So anyway, what we need to do again is take template.txt, put it into A1, rename it as index.html. So I want to copy template.txt. Now, in Japan, I understand that if the head of a big company, the owner of a big company only has a daughter, what happens is that when she finds a man her father approves of, they get married. But instead of the way it is in the US, what happens is he changes his name to the bride's name, and then he can technically inherit the course because he's part of the family now. He's the son now. Now, yes, ladies, that is horribly sexist, but tradition is hard to break and it's not always modern. Anyway, the point is, when somebody gets married, generally one of the partners at least, has to change their mailing address. And that's what we need to do here before we can change the name. So CP template.txt, which I have highlighted, we want to put it into the new directory, which is A1. And to tell it we're done with directories, we put a forward slash. Now, we could have 5 or 6 of these directories in front of the file we want to copy. Perfectly legal. But in this case, all we need is A1. And the file we need in every universe-facing website we build has got to be index.html, at least at our level. I'm going to suggest strongly that you get in the habit of using -i. Remember, we talked about flags. We talked about frags recently. No, fragmentation grenades are not useful in public underscore HTML at all. The -i stands for interactive mode at the command line. And what that will do is it will start the copy process. And if it finds index.html in A1, it will say, whoa, hold up. Are you sure you want to overwrite this file? And as someone who has personally just kind of slid into my chair and coded for 6 hours without making incremental saves, I will tell you it's a horrible thing when you go to a new directory and find out you've just overwritten all of your work with a blank file. After rebuilding my index.html for my site on Loki, I think twice in a row, 2 semesters in a row, I finally started making backups of it. So I don't do that anymore. But let's go ahead and hit the enter key. So we don't have any warning messages, which is a good thing. If you hit the up arrow key, the last, I don't know, about 100 commands you entered in, you can get back to. So if I try this now, though, already having index.html in A1, notice what it says. It says copy, overwrite A1 index.html. If you do yes, it will automatically overwrite. But if you don't know if you've saved that or if there's more of a more advanced version of the code that you're writing already there, I would definitely say no, and then go ahead and cd into A1, do my ls -l. Whew. Wasn't that nice? We didn't overwrite index.html. Of course, that's a little bit facetious too, because we obviously just transferred it in. But it's really never a problem for you to, just cover your assets. Don't take things for granted, because when you start taking your memory for granted, that's when you're going to make a mistake. And that's one of the reasons why every time I change directories, you're going to see me do ls minus l, so I can be sure what's in that directory before I move on and do something. So remember your A1, the almost punch and run goes in there. So if it's in another directory, you can use WinSkip or CyberDuck to move it out of where it's at and into the A1 directory. Or you can send me an email, and I don't have that bloody file there. Yeah, that's okay. Just if you absolutely can't figure it out, go ahead and give me an email and we'll talk about it that way. Now, here I'm up 3 levels for me. I'm in public underscore HTML summer of 20 A1. And again, if you PWD, that's going to give you basically the same information as you will get down here in your cursor. So as long as you can remember your cursor, you should never ever be lost in the command line area. Now, I am going to do CD and 2 dots rather than CD, because I only want to go down to the files that we're working on together here in summer of 20. CD space dot dot, I hit the enter key and I'm there. Remember, when you're typing these commands in, even the long ones, like the one up here, there is always the command, a literal space, the object that you want to work on, a literal space, and then the second object if there is one. Also, you can have flags. The -I is a flag. Down here in ls minus l, ls is the command for list, -l is a flag that tells it to give me all the information about each file in a vertical list alphabetically. And that's just the way they coded it. So it doesn't happen. If I just ls here, I just find that extremely confusing. But if I do ls and have the -l flag, I get a lot of stuff. If I do ls minus h, is it? Nope, nope, nope. There we go. Man, ls. Man stands for manual. Ls minus all, it says do not ignore entries starting with a period. Entries starting with a period are system files, and you need to be careful what you kind of pull out of those. If you get a swap file and you've already gone way past the area where you have made a mistake, walked away to go to the bathroom, and the connection to the Loki server, the connection to the VPN crashes, what will happen is Vim will automatically try and save things for you. But if you don't, if you didn't save, open it up in, open the one up in the swap file. So when you open up Vim, it'll automatically detect a swap file when you type in, Vim my.html. Let's go with that one. If you had a crash or something like that, Vim would save your work. And then you just hit use this or whatever the answer is. But the reason I got off on that tangent, I'm sorry, is because the swap file is one of those which you have to look at with ls minus all so that you can see the system files. Otherwise, you can't see those. I'm scrolling down to L here real quick. May not understand some of the stuff that's in there. There we go. Like ls capital L, use a long listing format is what I like. When showing file information for a symbolic link, we don't need to know that in our class. All we need to know is that if we do it this way, we can get the long listing format. If we do ls minus all or minus a, or al, I think it is the one I use, that will tell us everything that we need to know about how many swap files you have around your particular project. So yeah, let's just get out of there. So ls minus l is my preferred method, basically, is what I was trying to say. You know what happens when you misspell ls minus l? I'm a horrible dyslexic. Sometimes I do sl minus l. See, programmers are not just all boring people. How about just sl? Ooh, ls. You didn't put all of them back in, but that's okay. We at least have one of the steam locomotives. I think there's like 6 of them with ASCII animation that scroll merrily across the screen. I know a lot of people think we're real geeks, and I guess playing with toy trains and ASCII art is pretty geeky too, but you don't always have to be 100% serious when you're on the job. As long as you get your code done, you can play around with things a little bit. All right. We need to go back into public underscore HTML if you're not still there and type mkdir a2. Boom. And I know I went through this last week, but we're going to go through it again here real quick. I want to cd into a2. Boom, I'm there. Let's do our ls minus l. 0 files. So we know that in public underscore HTML, there is a template that we can start with. So we are going to do copy. We're going to go down 1 to public underscore HTML. And we're going to say, I want that template.txt file. Okay. Now wait, don't hit the enter key yet, because we've got our command, we've got our object with a path to it, we've got a space. Now we need to tell it what we want it to name itself. What we want to name it anyway. My great aunts were English teachers, and they just kind of rolled out in their graves here just that minute ago. But we want to call it index.html. And if we ls minus l, look at that. There we go. We have index.html created June 4th, etc., etc. Now, the other thing we need to do, because in assignment 2, we want to see a picture of your bright, smiling COVID apocalypse face. We need to mkdir a treasure chest, a place to hold everything as far as images are concerned. So mkdir images. Hit the enter key. Again, we had no error messages there, so I assume it's correct. But we can make sure with 3 seconds worth of typing, 4 characters and a space. And there's our images directory. Now, when we were doing, no, it wasn't this class, but a couple of you have asked me about having things that don't show up on the web, even though you've got everything set up. What we need to do in that case, I'm going to go back down 1 and ls minus l. So I've got to scroll back up here. There's our A1 and our A2. We are going to chmod those. We're going to change mode So CHMODE. Whoops, D, not E. Wow, where did the E come from? 755 space A1. If you can't see A1, VPN's going, you're logged in correctly, but you can't see it on the website or the website on the web, do this. Chmod 755 A1. And I'm going to scroll back up here. No, I don't have to because we've got one right below it. Just do that. Now, let's ls minus L again. I'm going to scroll back up here. Whoops. Notice the difference over here. Still directories. The user, in this case me, Jay Blackmore, has read, write, and execute permissions. The group that I'm in has read and execute permissions, and the general public have read and execute. So they can go up and down the directories in your public underscore HTML file, excuse me, directory, to find the file that you are looking for, in this case, index.html. Notice down here, the general public doesn't have any permissions at all. So that's the difference. And when you do it at the file level, it should change everything. I'm going to do it on here just to make sure that I open my mouth and nothing works. But we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to CHMOD, and we're going to do a 755. Again, the 7 says all permissions to me, and 2 out of the 3 permission boxes are checked for everybody else in the universe. And then we want A2. So let's cd into A2 again. Do an ls minus L. And now it doesn't look like it's going to give me the read and execute on the images directory. So let's do that again. Oh, duh. I was thinking of where I was, not where I needed to be. So chmod 755 images. I can't chmod 755 A2 like I just said, because you can't change the permissions on the directory that you're in. But since images is up there outside of things, I can certainly do that. So let's try here real quick. Again, I hope that you're seeing all of my desktop here instead of just, no, you are. You're just seeing the Loki server. But with the changes we made in A2, we brought in the template, which is what this is. We set up our directory structure so that now you should be seeing everything in summer 20/A2. Now we're not going to do the whole bloody thing. We already did a little bit of this assignment on the white cat page that I was talking about last time. But what I want to do is I want to grab bed dog, this little bugger right here that we already worked on. And I want to bring him into the images directory in A2. So in this case, you got to log into WinSkip, and I've already done that. So let me share this. Oh, I don't want putty configuration. I want, there we go. I am at jblackmore public_HTML CIST 1300 right now. Sorry, I've got a stray hair on my mustache that keeps tickling my nose. So I don't need to be there. I need to come back to public_HTML. I need to find the directory that I work in, which is one above that, summer of 20. And then I need to go into A2, and I need to go into images. Now over here, this little drop-down combo box is usually stuck on my documents. I don't want anything about my documents, okay? What I want to do is I want to again go up, change it to my desktop, and just scroll down until I find bed dog. Those are PDFs. There we go. Oh, that's slap dog. That's a GIF. We don't want that one. There we go. Bed dog small. I lift it up, drop it in there, and we should be done. So let's go back and take a look at our web page. And if we come back out here and hit refresh, okay, let's see what's going on. What are we missing? We don't have any text or tags. Well, we got plenty of tags, but no image tags, right? Nothing to really define where that bed dog image needs to go. So I'm going to minimize that again. Let's go back into Putty. I think that one's Putty. And let's take a look at index.html. So we know we're in A2, ls, come on, silly thing. There we go. ls minus l. We know we have an images, we know we have an index.html. So let's vim index.html. And I'm having difficulties with getting these text fonts to change. I want to use the vimrc, but we haven't had a, come to the table and let's see what's going on meeting yet. Kind of funny, a bunch of old computer geeks in white masks. Anyway. All right. Now, remember, you can either hit the I key or the insert key. If you hit the insert key, do it twice, you're in replace mode, which I don't really recommend unless you're an excellent typer and you're constantly looking at the screen. I'm not. So I always keep it in insert mode. Now, I'm going to add a comment here. At least I thought I was. Oh, you know what I forgot? There we go. It's the bang. The bang is what I forgot. And all you want to do is type in something like my picture is next. And now once I've got that closed, that automatically flips the color back to what is normal. One of the ways you can find out if your, excuse me, if your image or your comment tag is wrong is just one element gone, the end or the beginning, and everything looks weird. So we're going to get rid of that. Well, we're going to go down from it anyway. I'm going to give myself some space. I like space. It is the final frontier. So I'm going to create a div, ID equals dog. Now, what do you see there? I see 4 different colors. That really isn't what we should see. So in order to create this, we have to do two things here. ID equals, double quote in the beginning, double quote in the end. So div is an HTML tag, ID, I keep wanting to read it id, but it's ID in this case, is an attribute. The equal sign is just text, and bed dog is our ID. Notice that there are spaces in here. Spaces are bad karma when we're doing this kind of thing. So we can delete it in the front. We could delete it here and just run bed dog together, or we could use a dash or an underscore if we wanted to separate the two words. Generally, the other tip that I would give you is if you just, force yourself into doing something by habit, like dead dog. That was not intentional. Maybe it's a slip somehow. Just find a style that works for you and just do it that way every time. That way you know that bed dog is going to have no caps and the two words are going to have a dash between them. Or the two words are pushed together. I've heard that new German words often start that way, where they just add a few more syllables to a root word and they've got a new word in the language for something. So let's just go ahead. Since we've opened it, let's go ahead and close the div. We're going to close that. And then behind it, because it's so hard sometimes to remember, especially when you've got a lot of divs that are nested, one after the other kind of thing. It's really nice to be able to just look at that closing div and have something like closes bed dog div. Again, I apologize for that dark blue text. The Loki server is not under my, or excuse me, see, I told you I'd be calling it the Loki server. The Odin server is not under my control. Now, finally, that we've got a place for this image tag to go, we can do the image tag. And remember, that's img. The first attribute we use is src, it's source equals quotes. Now, imagine that you're standing on index.html or whatever page you want this image on. You've got to tell it how to get from here to there. And the way we do that is we just, we count the number of directories away it is and put those in order. In this case, we're already in the A2 directory, but we need to go to the images directory and pick up, I believe it was bed dog dash sm, whoops, not am, sm for small, dot jpg. Again, we don't want spaces in there. You may have seen downloaded a picture or something from the web and had a bunch of %20s in it or something along those lines. Those are ASCII representations of things like the / quotes, that kind of thing. The second attribute that is required for an image tag is the alt text, or just alt. And alt equals, in this case, picture of Great Dane. Whoops. That's good enough. Now, we went over this, I think, last time, but we can also use, it's not required, but we can also use a title, which will pop out that tooltip. So title equals Great. I think we got to capitalize that. I'm not a dog breeder, a Great Dan. I'm sure there's a Great Dane somewhere. Great Dane covering a third queen size bed. And remember that the image tag is self-closing. Technically, we're not supposed to, well, I don't know if we're not supposed to or not, but technically, people are going away from the closing /, but it's still part of the HTML5 system. So I think we're good to go. A Great Dane Voving. Covering. Dyslexia is awful. Anyway, escape, colon, write, and quit. Now we're going to come back out here and let's hit the refresh in the code. Now look at that. We see the code right there. What if I click on that? I get bed dog small. So far, so good. Let's see what it looks like out here. There we go. I still think that image is a little big at 300 by 225, but oh, I've got the text size shot up. That's why. So that is the hardest part of assignment 2. And if you go back and compare the page I just did to the page we were supposedly doing together via the last video lecture, you'll find they're really both the same. But instead of doing the dog or the cat, you've got 4 different sections. The first one is about me, and that one contains your picture. The second one is education, where you went to school in your high school days or your junior high days. You know, were you a cheerleader, the chief gamer for the gaming club, whatever. The third page is recreation. What do you do when you have fun? Where do you go? Do you ever bring your friends along on things? What's the highest roller coaster you ever rode? All of those kind of things would be fair game in there. Finally, the fourth section, just like we built for the bed dog ID, would be quotes. If you've got a site for them, S-I-T-E, not C-I-T-E. But if you've got a site for them, cite the site. In other words, I want to know where you got those quotations from. I would prefer them to be in block quote so that you can use the title and the author as the text between the block quotes. And then for your, you need to, yeah, that's fine, as a text behind the block quote, but you also need to have the quote itself, which I realized just a moment ago that was redundantly redundant, but plow forward and go on with life, right? But each one of these individual sections will all look like the bed dog or the cat page that we put together tonight and the night before. I do want to do one more thing while I'm in here. So let's Vim that again. And it's exactly the same as I wanted to do the last thing with the cat page. And that is, I want that dog's picture to float over on the left-hand side of the screen. So it doesn't matter where I put this in the list of attributes. So I'm going to put it right here in the beginning. I'm hitting the insert, giving me a little bit of space to work in, and here I am going to do, does anybody remember? Wow. This is almost as noisy as when I asked that question in a regular classroom. So we want to do a style tag, style equals double quotes. Now, this only looks weird because I've only got one quote down. If I put a second quote down, it would go back to being normal. So don't panic if you see that when you get just one quote up. And what I want to do is, again, just like the cat, float colon ft, left, semicolon to end the rule, and a double quote to end the style tag. Again, escape, colon, right, and quit. And you should be able, once more, to see this thing live. Better do something else here, because we don't have a lot of text. So, uh, wouldn't let me type for a minute. So paragraph, all right. I just want some text to float. There we go. See, as float, you can float left or float right, and the text should float on the opposite side of where your picture is floating. So I think that's that for now. What we're going to do is, we went through that other set of slides. So we're going to run through another set of slides. And that is, where are you? You shut down on me. No, we got through all the sectioning elements. Never mind. I had a note here on my desk. I didn't even look at it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go look at images. And there's a little bit of the images lecture from just before the COVID-19 apocalypse hit, and the Odin server was revived from the corpse of Loki. So we're going to make that happen here. Now, give me a moment while I bring up, wait a minute, come on. Yep, summer 20 index 4, okay. So cd dots, and I want them index4.html. Yeah, we'll go with this. We may have talked a little bit about this, but I think that was the recording that got corrupted, actually. So the image tag that's here, image source, images, tree, frog, fern, forest.jpg, the alt, and the style are all ready there just so we can save some time. But if you notice, it's the same basic tag every single time. An image, a source attribute, an alt attribute, and you can do style if you need to. Now, this tree frog is, oops, I forgot to share. I'm a bad person, apparently. So we don't want that or that or that. Let's just try and share the whole desktop again. All right, so here's where we're at. We're in the index4.html page. And as I was saying, you'll notice that this image tag is the same regardless of what the image is. The only difference is inside the source, we have a path to a different image and we have a different alt. In this case, we even have the huge frog image using style cut down to 300 pixels wide. Now, if you do something like this, first of all, it's going to cost you intense amounts of money if you've got 1 million hits a day. Secondly, if you are doing this and borrowing the image from someone else's website, and they're a popular site, or they're an unpopular site, and all of a sudden your use of their image by hot linking, and I'll explain that here in a few minutes, can get you in trouble. So let's take a look at the slide here real quick. So we are using images. Wow. Come on, you silly, silly thing. Function lock on. I do not. Let's try this again. There we go. I still don't like the way they've set this up, but I haven't taken the time to figure out how to change the new one. So I'm going to figure this out and change this for the next time. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and do this. So far, everything's about text, and text is important. That's how we tell stories, by opening our mouth and speaking, putting a pencil to a paper, or typing on our word processor. But just like a children's book, a little kid is not going to sit down and in big air quotes go, I want to read this story. They want to look at the pictures. One mommy or daddy or big brother or big sister reads the book to them. So the story is important to them, but what makes it real to them are the images, the styling, the things that make it pretty. So Bob actually wrote this slide, and I haven't changed it, but I should. There are other images that you can use on the web if you're not saving bandwidth, at least. One of the originals was GIF. And yes, it is pronounced like the peanut butter, just like that animal, the giraffe. If you look on, I don't remember where I've got it, but I've got it on either the CIST 1300 site as a link to a news bulletin, or it may be on Canvas. I honestly don't remember. But the thing is that with a GIF, it's limited to 256 colors, so it's 8-bit, you know, like the original Zelda. It supports animation, and supposedly it's lossless, but I'll just leave it at that, which means you're not supposed to lose image clarity. But again, this can be animated, and a lot of websites, including some of my own, because people asked me to build them for them, had GIFs on them. The problem is now everything is so much faster than it was in the late 80s, early 90s, that the GIFs that were put on pages back then and still exist are hyperactive now. The Joint Photographic Experts Group, the JPG, is the one that you're probably most commonly associated with. A lot of your digital cameras, things that you can take digital pictures with rather than film pictures, all work with the JPG version. You might find a few pictures that are .jpeg. It's basically a France thing, because the JPEG, I believe, was out of, I can't remember the city in France. I don't think it was Paris. I think it was somebody else. The PNG is portable network graphics. It is an unpatented, I sound like Trump. It is a non-patented, nobody owns it. Ping 24 is 16 million colors. Ping 8 has up to 256 colors. Ping's a pretty good image format. Sometimes you can trick images. No, I'm not even going to talk about that. But sometimes your image file or your image viewer may detect a ping instead of your JPEG that it's labeled as. There's also an SVG, a sector-based, or a vector-based. I said sector, didn't I? But it's a vector-based style of images. And you can Google that and find out way more about it than I know. Using your own images, easy, legal, 100%. But there was I don't know, maybe a medium-sized company, because they spent a lot of money on this, that did a search. They were going to put out a shareholder report about, a few thousand of them. So they started looking through images online, the people that sell use of the images for certain amounts of dollar, for certain amounts of eyeballs on the image. And they asked for a price quote from the photographic storage company, and they got it back. And apparently their eyes were bugging out because it was extremely expensive. The image itself was an image of one of those, the red double-decker buses from England in front of the House of Parliament. So they said, no, we're not going to do it. Thanks, but no thanks. So they sent a company photographer out over to England, take a couple days, find the best shot, grab a hold of it, and bring us back a bus in front of Parliament. So said, so done. They brought it back. They used their copyrighted image on the cover of their, whatever it was, 3,000, 4,000, maybe more, of their shareholders' reports, and sent them out. The photographic company took them to court and said, you may have taken that image, but it was our intellectual property, because you wouldn't have posted that way if you hadn't been negotiating for a copy of our image for your book. And short story is that the judge that was, had precedent over the case, the judge that was saying yes or no sided with the company that provided the original image. So it's kind of scary. I've never actually been able to find how the case ended. Probably 10 years ago. I really want to, but I can't remember the names of the companies even, to be honest with you. To me, it's really weird. I think this happened in Britain too, but it's really weird that we could have that kind of thing happen. So think about it. Think about the number of people that take pictures of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And think about, with millions of people doing it every year, there comes a point, probably a long time ago, where every potential place for a camera has been used. So if you take a picture of Paris or the Eiffel Tower in Paris and say it's yours, could you be sued under this kind of judgment, under this ruling? I don't know. My jaw still drops when I think about this. I just don't know how that could happen. But we're not going to worry too much about that, because we're going to make use of what they call the fair use doctrine. Usually when we're building sites for people to learn from, we kind of give it a waiver. But if you're going to take your website, your project site for the semester live, I would definitely say go out and shoot your own image. And hit the Wikipedia site as well, the fair use site. Now, remember that these images are everywhere, but unless they specifically opt out of copyright, you're not supposed to use them. You can go to places like Wikimedia or Creative Commons. There's a link there. Um, maybe, again, a Google search, works I can use for commercial purposes for free, works I can modify, adapt, or build upon. You can go to uh, the other licenses. Yeah. You can obtain copyright for your other licensed images. You can go in and find, maybe a search for other licensed images that I can use on my website, that kind of thing. I will say this, the internet is not quite as Wild West as it used to be, but you are still likely to type in a word that has nothing to do with biology, sexuality, or anything, and still wind up with a picture in your search returns of human anatomy. Let's put it that way. The best way to stop that from happening, if that bothers you, is to add the search filter via Google. Um, in my opinion, Google's gone too far with the censorship, because sometimes information on LGBT, social, the way that LGBT people are treated, um, breastfeeding, all of these things that are about as non-sexual as you can get are being, safe searched out because they might contain words relating to anatomy, which I think is silly. But if you want to be protected from that, use the safe search for whatever browser you use. Now, an image is not part of our HTML5 document. It's more like the picture of grandma and grandpa you got hung up on the wall in the kitchen or the living room. What we do to put images online is we go ahead and actually provide the frame, the place where that's going to sit in our web page, just like we did with the cat last week, just like we did with the dog this week. And that is going to tell our browser in code, the image tag. Remember, the first one you need really is the attribute called source. Source is what tells our picture where it goes. Now, the file itself, we put our dog and cat pictures into an images directory. For assignment 2, you'll use a picture of yourself and put it in your images directory inside of A2. If you have image hosting with a company somewhere, or if you've got a bunch of photographs that you want to provide to, I don't know, your model railroad association buddies, pictures of the last paint job you did on an HO scale locomotive, or pictures of your O scale, the big Lionel toy trains. You could go to, what's the one from New Zealand, Mega. That's the one that they had a whole bunch of litigation over here 10 or 12 years ago. But we won't get into that. But what we're going to talk about for the most part is images that are stored locally. And we've already talked about the tree. I'm not going to go through this. You can certainly come back and take a look at it. The one thing I will tell you is we don't run publish public HTML anymore. Instead, we're going to use that Chmod 755, and we'll talk more about that tonight in our group chat, and we'll probably have to run into it several times. Again, image is an atomic tag. It has 2 required attributes. The first is discussed here is source. Again, remove publish public HTML. We're never going to do those. Instead, we are going to use the Linux command of change mode or chmod. This is the code verbatim for the tree frog picture that I hope I just showed you. But let's go ahead and bring this up. So that is exactly the same code as we've got here. Well, one other. There we go. So image source equals tree, frog, fern, forest, etc., etc. Notice I have one extra word from the slides, and that is images. Because remember, what we did was create an images directory, and inside of that is where we stored our image. So I'm telling it, from where you are, find the images directory, open the lid and take tree frog in the fern forest out and put it on the wall that is my screen. Here we did a style equals width 300 as well. So let's take a look at this one. So here it is with, what do I got? 300 pixels width? It's 300 or 500, I can't really remember. But if I right click and view image, this still says, if I brought it up, notice I clicked on it and we got huge error. Now that frog is about the size of my phone, but he's way bigger on the screen right now. That's because his image is huge. I'm going to do a save image as straight to my desktop here. And where the devil are you? I should know better. I should have changed it to the next one. No, that's not it. There we go. See, it was hiding up there. This says we're zoomed to 1223 by 918. Again, if I go to image and information, it is 1394 by 1046. So it's not quite as big as the big dog, but it's big enough. So again, this is something that I would prefer to see you on your site. Go back to, whoops. Yeah, we're okay there. Go back to image, down to the second block of commands, resize, resample. And I don't know, that looks higher to me, or taller to me than wide, maybe. Apparently width is longer. So this is the size of the original image. This is the size 300 wide by 225 pixels high. And once again, this would be the best way to put one of these on your website. We don't want to do it this way with code. We want to see it happen so that you don't happen offline, basically, happen in the Earthend view or Photoshop. That's what I was thinking of, Photoshop. But there's some of those licenses that I mentioned. Copyleft, Creative Commons, by, I really don't know what bias means. I think it's because you have to give them credit for it and put their name in the credits, that kind of thing. So next thing we're going to talk about is Mars. I love this stuff, going to Mars and all of this. That should be really, really cool. But before we get there, there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that is The old days, what you'd have is a height and width command that would take the place of the style. Instead of using the old school commands, I want you to try and figure out how to use the style equals. Now, I'm not going to throw new stuff at you without having shown it, but you need to understand little by little how we're adding those inline styles in. Eventually, we're going to see an embedded style sheet and then an external style sheet. And that latter is the one that most everybody uses these days, except for very small cases. So again, the image that we're pulling is an internal image. It's using a relative URL from where your feed are, from where your document is in your server. Where do we find the image? And again, in this case, the image source tells us it's in images, Mount Sharp first look. It has an alt of curiosity, looking at Mount Sharp on Mars. So that's all there is to it. Below it in a paragraph, image credit, NASA, JPL, Caltech. Now, a lot of NASA images are free to use too, as long as you put in the credit line. After all, we pay our taxes directly into them. And there is, I'm going to pull this back down a little bit. Whoops, you can't pull it back down on the image itself. There we go. That's about the normal size of a page. Again, this is huge. You're paying a ton for the bandwidth for everybody in Southwest Wales to download this image of the Mount Sharp in Mars or on Mars. And there's our paragraph, just plain text for the reference. Now, this is an image of what you don't want to do. I am actually stealing bandwidth here from Amazon, but I buy enough books from them every year that they can afford to give me a few bytes of bandwidth to basically show people what they shouldn't do when they're out in the real world. The heck? Two keys. So here's what we're doing. This is called hot linking, by the way. And I have seen things that will probably never leave my mind. When somebody discovers that, you know, his World of Warcraft icon has been hot linking from their website. People get really ticked off when that happens. I've seen everything, but this user is stealing bandwidth to just goatsy-esque pictures. So don't ever hot link from somebody else. Always, always serve the images on your own web server, not on Amazon's or anybody else's. The other problem that we've got is, you see how funky this URL is? There's no spaces in it. But wow, I don't think I could remember that. And if I twisted around the 4 and the G there, like you've seen me do already this semester, there's no way I could know what to do to fix it. Amazon, if they were ticked off because I was getting 1 million hits a day from these 3 images and not putting them back to Amazon to make the sale, they could do anything they wanted in the place of these. It's just not worth it. They have control of their server, you don't. And they could change the link to these 3 videos, or well, they're videos now, but they're movie posters at any point in time. So it's kind of at best awkward to do this kind of thing for reals. Now comes the real part. Let's get back into the slide set. And now we're going to have to really kind of work on things, because that's the last code that I had time to prep for tonight. So we're going to real quick look at the last 5 or 6 slides in here. and we're going to call this good. I'll post it on YouTube. This is the second half of last week. And I'm going to get started on the first half for tonight's lecture as soon as this particular video is processed. I won't wait for URL, or I won't wait for YouTube to do it, but I'll go ahead and start working on the next video for you guys. Now, again, this is just a recap of what I talked to you about here in the last 4 or 5 minutes. And let's shift to F5. So an absolute URL is just this: http:// Amazon.com, and then all of that alphabet soup that came behind it. A relative URL is when we imagine ourselves standing on the page that we're on and trying to figure out where that image is located, or where that sound bite is located, or whatever. Now, images themselves, as we did, when we all grabbed a cat picture the other day, they're easy, right? Let's go somewhere here. I don't know if the BBC had a block on it, but let's see if we can do this. Copy image. Here, I need to move you down. There's my Irfan view. All I have to do is Control V. There's my chicken in a basket. And now it's mine, right? No. You should just never do this. Stealing bandwidth, stealing images, especially if I were going to take that and put it on my web page and as an examples of my chicken at Jeff's chicken farm, poultry producer. Bad karma. People can be mean and nasty out there. Don't give them an excuse to be nasty at you. And they will if you start stealing things. Hell, Metallica will send a lawyer knocking on your door, wanting to sue you for $12 million. Lars Ulrich, he just needs a new glass and gold bathtub. That bloody thing. Never mind. Now, the other thing that this set of slides does is it adds a title to each one of those images we stole from Amazon. We've already done that tonight to a different image, but you can still do it. So I'm not going to do that one. At least I think we did it. Do not, please, use the old school width and height attribute. That's why I didn't go over it. We want you to use style equals width, colon, a number, and px for pixels. If you want to know, type in W3 Schools, height and width, CSS. Or just one or the other for that matter, because you flip the word width and height and basically it's the same definition. If you use width or height, it will automatically, the browser will automatically keep the proportionality, the portrait or rectangular image for you. So you take the longest one or the highest side, the longest side or the highest side, whichever is bigger. And that's the one you reset. Like when we had the bed dog, it reset to 300 pixels by 225 pixels. So only choose one, and then everything else will get handled for you. There's a link here to GIMP Windows at sourceforge.net, and I've got one to earthandview.com as well. The lead page for GIMP is gimp.org. I don't know if that's even still online. I think it is. But let's give that a shot too here real quick. Go away, chicken. You bother me. Oh, what am I doing? I've got all kinds of things opened up down here. So gimp.org, there you go. Merry Christmas early. It's a very, very good piece of software. You can do almost everything that you can do with Adobe Photoshop, but it doesn't cost you 40 bucks a month. All right, that's it for now. I am going to go ahead and sign off here. I'll get this processed and up onto YouTube very, very soon. In the meantime, we will have this Thursday, June 4th, the 5:30 meeting as usual. I may log in early. I don't know how early though. So thanks for your kindness and patience, and we will see you soon. Bye. Oh, bye again.